Y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Alright guys, today we're going to be doing not necessarily, well, it is a more serious video. It is less me sitting here and talking to you about makeup. It is a video that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I have received some feedback from y'all that you have wanted me to do this video, either just to hear my thoughts on things, and for some of you who are less familiar with certain scenarios concerning this person and their brand. Today we are going to be talking about Kat Von D, or more specifically, the fall of her brand, which honestly, what I've been telling a lot of y'all in my comments, in my videos, any of y'all are like, her brand is just, it's gonna like end soon. I actually do believe that in the near future, she is going to come out with a statement that says, well, you know, because of certain things in my life, whatever, I need to be focusing on other projects. So I'm going to be, you know, shutting down Kat Von D Beauty because it's not something I see myself continuing to put effort in. And quite frankly, that's her prerogative. She's got her vegan shoe line. She's got her tattoo work. She has plenty of other ventures that she can continue to put her time and effort into. Obviously, not all of this is necessarily fact. I am not a drama channel. I am not a channel that has receipts, as it were. This is just me sort of giving you an overview, a light timeline, and sharing my perspective and my thoughts on kind of when this all started and what brought it to a head. All right, I do have notes because there is a lot of information going on here. So if there are certain times where I sound a little scripted, kind of because I am. All right, bring in 2008, 11 years ago. Kat Von D decided that she wanted to embark to create a cosmetics empire, which has turned over and given us many products that for a long period of time were cult favorites, as well as many things that were cult favorites that have been since discontinued. Examples of this would be her Interstellar palette, her Monarch palette, and her Chrysalis palette. Those are sort of the ones that I remember people being very upset about her discontinuing because they were honestly neutral. Well, the Monarch palette was. Actually, give me a second. This here is the Monarch palette, which is the more quote-unquote neutral of her palettes. This one is the Monarch palette right here, which is probably honestly my least used. And then last but not least, my most used is the Interstellar palette. Now, part of what stood Kat Von D out during the beginning, although during the beginning she did have much different palettes than these ones were probably originated in sort of the mid time zone of her brand in 2008. Showing you all my age. Y'all know I'm 28, so 11 years ago I was 17, 18. I was into makeup, but not in a position to be spending $49, $52 on a palette, so I was much less aware of this brand. But part of what made her stand out during this era, an era of naked palettes, chocolate bars, Lorac Pros, and Stila eyeshadow palettes. These color selections and the color selections of her original, more 10-pan palette size ones were something that was out of the box. I mean, you think of the Too Faced chocolate bar palettes, the naked palettes, you know, what are they? Neutral. This is neutral, but this is something that skews warm and started playing with the concept of that kind of orange and warmy birth that we saw in the modern Renaissance and many other palettes to come that kind of tiptoed out of that save all brown range. There was much hue and cry about her discontinuing these palettes from myself as well as other people. Now, however, when it comes to Kat Von D discontinuing products, it isn't all bad. She did have a blush range, the shade and light blushes, where you had It was a fairly large compact that had a lighter side and a darker side, and it received a lot of negative feedback of not being pigmented enough and also not blending out well. So, as a result of the feedback, she decided to have the blushes pulled, which, as a brand and as a brand owner, showed her consumers that she listened and she acted on the feedback given, which gave her a very good position as well as credibility amongst her consumers, aka us, you and I. And this, it just helped create a good, sturdy image for her brand, as well as eventually simply just going hand in hand with that impeccable quality control that she had in her formulas and her products and overall her brand. At this point, business is booming. Things are rolling by, months, years. She's got many products on the market that have become raved about, end-all be-all ride or dies for people. Her liquid liner, her shade and light eyeshadow palette, her shade and light contour palette. Things that people really held in high esteem as being the best of the best in their categories. Now, there is a slight hiccup, a moment of discrepancy within her brand. When she started, she had more plastic, acrylic, whatever. Then in the insurgence of her shade and light palette, as well as these, we did that, cardboard, whatever, which I'm honestly still fine with. She at some point decided, I am going to repackage. And after repackaging a lot of her things in more sleeker componentry and also updating the detailing on her foundation bottles, her liquid lipsticks, on her eyeliner, just the overall design, people noticed a discrepancy in formula changes with her concealer, with her foundation, with her eyeliner, with her contour palette, and her eyeshadows. So thus began the conversation of, is she still that standard of quality? Is she sacrificing formulas for aesthetic? But even before all that, let us go back to the initial beginning of the rise to the pinnacle of her brand. November 2014. Kat Von D released what I believe to be her first holiday eyeshadow palette. A star-studded book of shadows looking like this right here. This is a holiday release that would make waves within the beauty community and eventually set her standard within the community and within the industry for that high quality, as well as the anticipated, coveted, sold out holiday releases. Essentially, what it began would be a literal waterfall of expectation when it comes to her brand. And although there are many palettes that she has released before this one that are very, very sought out by makeup collectors and Kat Von D enthusiasts alike, that run for well over $200, it really was this palette that this particular release that set that ball rolling. Now, although this is a much more, I feel, safe, color story, you do have green, a little bit of purple, a little bit of blue. You look on the back and the way it's formatted, you have 4 shades that kind of correlate together. That aside, honestly, what makes this palette really the start is, you have the holiday release thing, that's definitely a thing. But the amount of shades that you got, the price point, the quality, and honestly, the size. Thus, enter holiday 2015. I'm sure some of you all seasoned veterans as myself remember the Mi Vida Loca remix. Now, I was lucky enough to grab this palette honestly, before I even knew what it was. I remember walking into Sephora, and this was early on in my makeup journey, I'd really started taking the plunge. And I remember seeing it, and they had one, and I bought it because at the time, I definitely was not a neutral lover. And this palette spoke to me on many levels. And the funny thing is at the time, this was honestly before I had a concept of really the anxiety that we face when it comes to new makeup releases, or even the concept of sold out items, which this one ultimately became, and stands as one of the palettes that when people do palettes about, oh, that I regret not buying, this is one of the most occurring one that really seems to be the one that got away from people. This palette truly marked an era for Kat Von D. It ushered in the golden age of her brand. It started the craze and the desire and the need and the demand for her holiday releases, which presented to us unique color stories, especially compared to what other brands were releasing. A high level of quality, beautiful artistry. It was something that I feel we had not truly seen from a very regular Sephora carried brand. What happened after this is essentially she became the standard for cutting edge quality cosmetics that appealed not just to makeup lovers, but to more alternative people like you and I who aren't necessarily drawn toward Estee Lauder or Bare Minerals or Smashbox. However, not all good things are meant to last. Enter 2016. Kat Von D decided to release a video addressing her, or at least some aspects of her relationships with another cosmetic company who was relatively new to the game. Someone we all know as Jeffree Star. And I feel like this video was released at a time when hating on Jeffree Star was very popular. Within the beauty community, it was sort of the kind of it thing to do. If you wanted to be a positive activist within the community, you had to be a Jeffree Star hater. In my opinion, I believe in my heart of hearts, she knew this. She knew how popular it was to trash Jeffree Star, and she wanted to ride that wave of hate in an attempt to literally give herself the higher moral ground and appear superior in a way. Because obviously we know now that Miss Von D doesn't really have an issue with hanging out with people that have questionable ethics and morals. And this was something that ultimately and definitely created a divide within people who, you know, you had the people who were die-hard Jeffree supporters, and then you had the people who were die-hard Kat Von D supporters. And now I'm not saying that what Jeffree did in his past is good. Definitely not. But one thing that I do like to state when it comes to rehashing things from people's past, whether it's Jeffree, Kat Von D, any brand owner, any celebrity, if we were to go and pick apart every single person on this planet, every celebrity, there would be probably no one, or at least a select few, that wouldn't have at least something that would cause distaste. It's just only when we find out about it that we care. So, this happened. It was a thing. She kept moving forward. Kat became incredibly consistent with what she released, the quality, how much she released. Essentially, what she would release were about 3 palettes a year. She inferred in on the pastel goth, which would be released early during the year. Then she would have sort of a mid-range release and then Holiday. Holiday 2016 would be the Metal Matte palette. I always found it was funny how her Holiday palettes just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what made this palette, I feel, so sought after is it was the Holiday palette right after the Mi Vida Loca remix. So people were still riding the high in the anticipation of what was she going to release next. She took the formula of her very popular Metal Crush shadows, gave us a row of mattes. A still fairly unique color story as well as a unique concept in format. This one became released with much fervor, being another sold out commodity that you could not find on selling sites such as Poshmark, Mercari, eBay, for any less than $150, $175 to $200. The devotion and the demand for these holiday releases had been firmly established. 2017, we had, as I mentioned, the Pastel Goth. Also in that year, we had the Shade and Light Glimmer palette, which was a all-shimmer multi-finish version of her very famous Shade and Light eye palette that was reached with a sort of, if I had the matte one, why do I need the shimmer one? Which is understandable, but at the time, if she made it, I bought it. In 2018, she had what I sort of thought and believed to be her magnum opus of holiday palettes, the Saint and Sinner. This gave us a perfect example of the aesthetic her brand was giving. Beautiful, gorgeous artistry, impractical packaging, and yet a beautiful shade of collections. This is probably the most, or the closest we were going to get to the resurrection of the Mi Vida Loca remix palette. However, this is when people also started pulling away from Kat Von D, not necessarily because of a, moral standpoint, but because they weren't necessarily drawn to her palettes. The Mi Vida Loca remix, although bright and crazy, had a visible, well thought out, beautifully structured color theory. Whereas in this palette, it felt much more mishmashed. Obviously, you had the brighter side, the Sinner side, and then you had the Saint side with more neutral, subdued colors. But I did see this palette in a lot of anti-hauls, and people were just not really finding it very cohesive. Begin 2018. Divine palette, which would be her little, pastel goth-sized palette, which was a, I hate to say collaboration, but was a palette with the ever-so-famous drag queen, Divine. Now, this was a very niche product that I feel like kind of obviously catered to people who are fans of Divine and people who were die-hard fans of Kat Von D, who had been a little less die-hard because of some quality and consistency in her products recently. Much to my surprise, this palette, unlike pretty much almost every palette previously, once released, was not sold out. I simply took this as being, well, it's a niche product. The color story is a little, you got the blue and the green and the black, there's not so much you can do. And I did address that in my review. Then her 10th anniversary collection dropped. This, in my opinion, is the start to the end of an era. Not because this palette is bad. It is definitely a middle ground palette. If you look at it, it has what I would consider a lot of recycled shades from the Saint and Sinner palette. You've got greens, golds, blue, purples, and oranges and reds, which, if you have this, you don't need this. And this was the first instance of it seeming as though she was putting a lot less thought and consideration into the color theories she was creating. And one important thing that I missed here, which was before the 10th anniversary palette, something else that made people feeling kind of not so happy. The metal matte kind of mini eyeshadow palette, which people, when teased, were very intrigued. They're like, get us some more of that metal matte. Give us some beautiful color theories, Kat. And she said, no, I'm gonna literally give you colors that were in the metal matte and sell them to you in a small palette, which is great if you love those colors and you don't want to lug this bad boy through customs when traveling. But it seemed to show that once again, she was becoming a little less innovative, a little less interested in creating something that was new and unique. And really, you know, it felt like she was sort of just relying on the popularity of another product that had already been released. But back to the 10th anniversary collection, amidst all of this, there was also a highlighter. The Metal Crush highlighter in Gold School, which, if any of you all know me, you know that her single Metal Crush highlighter in Thunderstruck is one of my end-all be-all highlighters. I was thinking, this is gonna be it. She has listened to the masses. My message has finally reached her. She is going to take that formula and she is going to give us big, glorious pans of highlighter. No, that is not the case. She gave us a nasty, chunky, gnarly mess. And part of what burns about that, number one, is before this, in the kind of holiday range, he had released a highlighter palette, which floated my boat because I have been wanting to experience highlighter from Kat Von D for as long as I've been buying from her brand. But what we got was like a thin, glittery, emollient, powdery, effervescent. It was not met with a lot of positivity. So we're sitting here relying on, well, she's going to listen to us because she has in the past. And then when she released this single in the 10th anniversary collection that was a worse formula than the one in the palettes, which was then further confounded by her release of her single highlighters, which were, I feel, after receiving the feedback on the highlighter palette, on the single in the 10th anniversary collection, you would think that even though a product does take months and years to formulate, there was plenty of time for her to have heard that and pull back on production instead of releasing a formula that she knew had not been well received. This sent a very clear message that she didn't care anymore. She didn't listen. She wasn't interested in coming out with products that, you know, our feedback was on. She was interested in coming out with products. Then, for you all, the video that started it all for me and the growth on my channel, Holiday 2018. Now, at this point, we had not reached, at least in my opinion, a true quality discrepancy. Whereas the highlighters I could label under, well, it's a new formula. It's something that's, you know, new to her. It's not a formula that I know and love, like her eyeshadows, like the expectations and the quality I've experienced for years past in her holiday palettes. This marked the era of me truly questioning Kat and the ability of her to continue to create quality makeup. Whereas the palettes before had been beautiful, we could understand the mishmash of colors that had sort of become Kat's thing. But what horrified me was the inconsistency of the pigmentation, the blendability, and the overall quality of almost every single shade in here. I've experienced Kat Von D Black in at least 6 other palettes. This is not it. The reds are okay, but I have experienced reds before. Everything else just seemed to be a far cry from the quality and the consistency I knew and loved. Beginning of 2019, the Lolita palette right here. The quality is fine. It is nothing absolutely amazing. I feel like if she had taken this color theory and put it into this format, it would have been so much better received. She could have made it a permanent palette, because writing on the Lolita name is something that Kat Von D is very good at. And so the fact that she didn't take it bigger and further just sort of once again solidified that, are you really putting effort into this? Are you really thinking things through? I'm going to stop talking about the timeline of products and going to be discussing for a small amount sort of what has really and truly inducted her fall. While I feel like the rise and decline of her brand and the products it releases is important, what is also very important is the image that she has portrayed of herself publicly to the community. Amidst the decline of her products, Miss Von D, after getting married to a somewhat questionable individual, she decided to let the world know that they would not be vaccinating their unborn child once it was brought into the world. Now, the anti-vax, pro-vax movements, or the whole cut and divide is real. It is a hot topic and created a huge hue and cry of controversy between Kat and her fans and people who simply thought it was irresponsible of her, one, to not vaccinate her child, and two, to simply just state it on a public platform and then respond to the backlash by basically saying F you. Now, while I feel to a certain extent, when it comes to a mother, it is not my child, it is not my decision, you do you. There is also a part of me that has a 90-year-old grandfather who basically has the immune system of a newborn, who, say he were out and about, going to physical therapy, going to a doctor's appointment, going to the flea market, going to the store, and he comes across Kat Von D's unvaccinated child. And if my grandfather contracts a cold, let alone the flu, let alone measles, let alone the plague, it will kill him. Now, there is the whole debate of, well, that's not her fault. You know, she didn't kill him. She didn't whatever. But the problem is, when you choose to not vaccinate, whether it's for religious, moral, it's not vegan, or whatever reason you are choosing not to vaccinate, you are saying it is getting a little too passionate up in here. You are saying it is my choice. It is my right. You are actively taking away the choices and the rights of everyone your unvaccinated child comes into contact with. And that is inherently and morally wrong. And another problem that I have, this is simply my own opinion, is when you have Kat Von D is a fully developed adult. Let her make her own decisions. She can marry who she wants. She can say whatever she wants to do. But, why are you bringing your child in on this so you can narrate your agenda to the world? Your child is not a tool to be used for you to use as a platform, as a means to share your ideals with everyone. Your child cannot make choices for itself. Your child has no idea. So treat your child correctly and don't use it as a propaganda tool for you to be like, I am so freaking vegan that I am not going to vaccinate because they're not vegan. I am going to potentially cause my child and everyone around them to get preventable diseases that could kill them because I'm so friggin' vegan. Speaking of vegan, her vegan love palette, which I feel is one of the least thought out products to date, once again furthering and nailing more nails into that coffin of her and her brand, is showing, I feel like, was released as a means to look at how vegan I am. Being so freaking vegan makes up for me making a comment about being, not vaccinating my child, for who I marry, for how I respond to PR things. Because I'm so vegan, I'm a good person. I would consider damage control and her not so much an apology video as it is, well, the company that owns my brand isn't happy that they're losing a lot of money because of my stupid behavior, so they told me I need to address this. Literally coming out and saying that, well, I wasn't saying I'm an anti-vaxxer, I was just a worried mother. Which I understand, being a new mother is a crazy thing, but that doesn't mean you need to post something so big as I'm choosing not to vaccinate on your social platforms and not expect or anticipate there to be a backlash. And then stating that, well, I can't be anti-Semitic because I'm Latina. Being Latina has nothing to do with it. It would have made more sense if she said, well, I can't be racist because I'm Latina, because the definition of anti-Semitism is being racist specifically towards Jewish people. So it would also make more sense, well, I can't be anti-Semitic because I'm Jewish. Being Latina, I'm not denying you your heritage and your ethnicity at all. But that statement literally makes no sense. You saying you can't be anti-Semitic. No, you could say I can't be anti-Semitic because I understand the prejudice and the problems of a culture being, attacked or marginalized against or anything like that, because I come from a culture that has dealt with that, but that just, no. And then this coupled with the release of even more lackluster products, of the fact that she does not seem to care enough to fully address issues either with her brand and her products or with herself as a person and fully, truly addressing these issues that are not trivial things, is truly simply coming together to create the ultimate fall of Kat Von D Cosmetics, which I do feel is impending. It is sad for me to think that it came to the point that I needed to make this, because as a much younger, more naive consumer many years ago, I honestly wouldn't have thought that it ever would have come to this. As for kind of my stance and my thoughts and my whatever, I have made the decision, not because I want to be morally superior or because, I'm just not going to support Kat Von D, because I'm sure there are plenty of other brands, Jeffree Star, who has shown problematic behavior, Too Faced, who has shown problematic behavior, Buxom, who I had supported in the past, and honestly, most brand owners, like I said before, I'm sure there are people who are horrible, horrible people who I am inadvertently supporting by putting my money into their companies. But as for now and going on into the future, I am not completely cutting Kat Von D cold turkey. I think that would hurt a little too much, as I do still have kind of somewhat of a, maybe somehow, some way she will come forward and pull out of this. But I will be slowly whittling down my purchases of hers. I'm on the search for certain new Holy Grail products that were made by her company, eyeliner. But as for me and my house, we will not be. In the future, we'll be working towards purchasing much less to eventually purchasing none from Kat Von D. I am going to end it there. I apologize if this video made absolutely no sense whatsoever. My timeline was completely screwed and I was just all over the place. If you are one of the lucky few who have made it to this point, by all means, leave it down below. Made it, you get a big hug from me. Obviously, I would love to hear some of your thoughts on some of the things that I touched on. I have heard a lot of y'all's thoughts about Kat Von D in my review videos, in my roast videos, so I do ask that any of you please just keep it civil. If there's one thing that I do not promote on my channel, I do promote differing of opinions, discussing. I do not promote just unnecessary hate. Most of us are adults here. I'm not sure of my demographic completely. And we sure as heck can act like one. But thank you guys so much for watching. I do love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah!